Hey, hey, hey! Hey, wonderful audience. That's right, I'm talking to you, our billions and billions and billions of audience members. Guess who's back? It's the Two Maesters, and we're here to talk about the Mandalorian. Oh, yeah, the galaxy's coolest daddy. Also, Pedro Pascal playing the same character in The Last of Us. But I won't go on a rant about that. Hi, Josh, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Unfortunately, starting to get a bit of a cold, but hopefully, this Mandalorian talk will heat me up about this, like how great this series is, and also like the finale, which was okay, but then also brings open like how good the universe is and what can be happening next in the Star Wars universe.
This is the way. It's
Definitely.
true. I mean, I will fully clarify the audience. I haven't seen all of season 1. I have seen all of season 2, and I've seen all of season 3 except for the final episode. But we always talk about spoilers on there, and it's time I got a taste of our own medicine.
Yes.
So don't hold back on this. Don't hold back. Let's start off with a description of the Mandalorian. Like, what is the Mandalorian? Well, this is the Wikipedia definition, and I know it's bad to use Wikipedia like when you're studying and stuff, but I just love their definitions because they just make you think, really? That's what it is? Like Star Wars is a space opera,
Yes.
Pirates of the Caribbean is a swashbuckling pirate fantasy. So The Mandalorian is an American space western. So what do you think comes to mind when you hear space western? Have you heard of that genre before?
No. But there was a film like with Daniel Craig, like in the tens that came out, or maybe like in the late noughties, about aliens who crash landed, and he was playing a cowboy, and he was
Yeah,
killing it.
Cowboys and Aliens.
Yes, yeah, that film, yes,
Yeah, I
because
suppose it actually is a space
that's
western.
a space western, but kind of similarities between both their characters, the Mando and also the person that Daniel Craig plays. But yeah, when I saw that on Wikipedia as well, like space western, you think to yourself, and it's like if you took away everything to do with space and you just focused on like him being in the Midwest and following the story, you can kind of see it. Especially like
Yeah.
when he then goes into like these towns, especially like in season 2 at the beginning, where they're going after like the crate dragon and trying to kill that. He goes into like this town that
Is that when he
feels like
meets the guy in Boba Fett's armor?
yes.
Yeah, when he rides in on that speeder thing, it's like so
Yeah,
western,
definitely
isn't
Western,
it?
yes.
It-
And like even the town, like the fact that you've kind of like got, in those Western towns, you've got like shops here, shops there. You've got like a highway or road in between the whole town, and it's like all these small shops and places. But in fact, like it was very similar to that in like the Mando as well.
yeah, yeah, I'd say so. And like even in season 3, like when he meets you meet the Mandalorian, a coven, is it? Was it a coven of Mandalorians? Is that what
Yes.
it's called? Yeah, I mean it's on a deserty style planet, and I guess like thinking about wider Star Wars movies, um, Tatooine and stuff. I guess it's always had sort of an element of space western to it because you got Tatooine, Jakku, which is basically the same
Yeah.
place in
Yeah.
my mind. But I guess that's the genre. That's the settings that they go for in the Star Wars universe. Just just never really occurred to me until the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian makes it kind of clear, and the sort of soundtrack
Yes. Yes.
reflects
Yes.
it as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Especially like the opening theme for the
Oh,
Mandalorian.
I know, I love it.
If you it really does give off like space western vibes, especially like in season 1 when he goes to see Baby Yoda Grogu for the first time,
Baby Yoda.
and then like walks into the town and like everyone is in the building. They come out of the building and then he starts shooting. That's really so
This is
much
the way.
like
That's the way. You
that's
walk
the
into
way.
town, start
Yes.
shoot, start, and I started blasting.
And I think that was the first time he saw, the assassin droid as well. Is when
What's
he
the name of the assassin droid?
I've forgotten what it's
It's a designation rather
yes.
than a name, to be honest. Let me get up that list of characters. This is something I don't know why. Every time we do this, we're like, "What's the character's name?" And I spend a couple seconds looking it up. Wow, this might take a while. But go on, as you're saying about the assassin droid.
And the fact that in that scene it does feel kind of like a John Wayne, Clint Eastwood western, because it's like they're in a desert area. He basically arrives on his bike, gets off his bike, walks up. They're trying to do a deal,
Mhm.
and then the gang that was inside then comes out and starts shooting. That kind of feels like a western.
Yeah, there always is. And I guess like the salons, in a
Yes, yeah,
western, there's
yeah.
always a salon. They go through those weird flappy gates. Everyone stops and stares at them, and then they go by the bar, ask the
Yes.
bartender to drink. Someone comes over.
Yeah,
He's like
yeah, yeah,
leaning
yeah.
on the table. Every single western, it's always
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
He
Like
picks
cowboys.
a fight with the main person.
Yeah, and then the salon just breaks out into a big brawl. And I guess, because like Mos Eisley Cantina, it
Mm.
kind of happens. Luke comes in, he's like, "Hey, my friend doesn't like you. I
Yes.
don't like you
Yeah.
either."
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. God, Star Wars really is a space western. By the way, the name of the droid is IG-11.
Ah.
Forever in our hearts, IG-11. I love it how
Mm.
the Mandalorian doesn't like droids.
I think, yeah, they were like, for those. This is kind of like a spoiler, but it's because the droids came to his world. Because like in the season one, there's a
Mm,
flashback, and you see like the one of the droids. I've forgotten what the name is, but one of the droids from the Clone Wars. So
mm.
you had like the normal droids that would go Roger Roger all the time,
Roger, Roger.
and were pretty
Oh, I
inept.
should have done that on the soundboard. Damn it.
True. And then you also had like the ones that were in silver that would shoot from their wrists.
The Mega Battle droids.
They went to his planet and started like destroying everything the planet he was on in
And
the
what
flashback.
what timeline was that? Is that in the War of the Separatists? Like,
I think based on his age, I think it could have been either just before like the Clone Wars ends
mhm,
or just after. Because I
right.
think if I'm remembering correctly, the yeah, it must be before. It must be during the Clone Wars because the droids were then made obsolete after the Clone Wars
I
ended
was
and
gonna say
Palpatine.
World War
That's what I was
Two.
about to
The
say.
droids. Oh my god!
And
The
then
untold history of World War Two.
and
You heard
then
it here, folks.
and then Palpatine then takes charge and becomes Emperor. Yeah, so that's probably why he hates droids so much because the devastation it brought to the planet that he was on.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll go into the lore a bit about who are the Mandalorians, but I've got to say, like, I loved the second to last episode in the third season of The Mandalorian. No, so it wasn't the second to last episode; it was the third to last episode of The Mandalorian, where basically Bo-Katan and Din Djarin go to basically get the other half of the Mandalorian tribe back. The normal ones, the non-fanatical
Yes, yeah.
Watchmen or Death Watch ones, whatever they're called. Uh, they go to that planet uh, where they're all living in these like domes, these lovely, beautiful
Mm.
domes, but droids are starting to malfunction, or that they've developed some weird consciousness. I love it how it's the old droids, from the
Yes.
Phantom Menace,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the battle droids, the Roger Roger droids. So cool, such a good throwback. I really loved how they infused some nostalgia
Yes, yeah.
in that. I was wondering, would you ever see them again? Because the Confederates must have built massive armies, so there must be a few remaining ones somewhere. But
Yeah.
good throwback.
And I think also like they showed it in Rebels. There was like this really
Oh right.
special episode in Rebels where you had like the old clones. I think it was Cody who was supporting the rebels, and then they found like a cache of like old droids from the Clone Wars. So then what happened was that they able to reprogram them to so then the droids from like the Clone Wars
Mm,
and the clones were working together to attack the stormtroopers, which is also like a clever thing because it's
sick.
like the fact
This is
that
the way.
those both of them were the casualties of the Clone Wars. Like both of them were basically made to fight a war that was for no reason other than to put Sidious into power.
Yeah, they're just puppets, weren't
Yeah.
they? It's funny how they're both two different sides serving the same Dark Lord. Yeah, I know. Oh, Sidious, you were gone too soon. The best character in the Star Wars universe. Still so quotable to this day. Like, I just love saying ironic.
Yes, yeah.
And that's not even the best quote by him. So let's delve in a bit to the lore. So I loosely know a bit about the Mandalorians,
Mm.
but if you were gonna summarize, who are the Mandalorians?
I would say the Mandalorians are basically Star Wars' closest depiction, I would say, to Spartans. That
Really, Spartans? Okay,
people that I think
what, like a warrior culture?
so a warrior culture which is
Mm,
based on honor, which is based on people like finding a name for themselves and also heavily based on clans.
yeah.
And I think one of the key things that in like Legends continuity, so like the non-canon stuff is that the clans are actually really important to the Mandalorians, and that each person has a clan, and that they can also be ousted from their said clan for actions that they've done. And I
Right.
think
Not
that
following the way, taking off your helmet.
yep,
This is the way.
and I think also they they're one of the things that they try to get away from, like the Clone Wars, was like their attitude of constant war and realizing that they don't actually have to go to war to prove themselves as major players on the galaxy.
Hmm.
It's like one of the things that in like Legends continuity that's kind of brought the Mandalorians into a lot of trouble is that like a lot of Sith, like Dark Jedi and Sith, have used the Mandalorians to fight
Fight
with
the
them,
Jedi.
to fight
Yeah.
the Republic,
Hmm.
because they've been so wanting to like prove themselves and say that this is the a major foe to prove yourself, to prove how strong you are. So they would convince the Mandalorians to then fight the Republic. So it's countless times, like in Legends, they might even try and bring it into canon as well. The times that Mandalorians have gone to war with the Sith or with a form of Sith Empire to attack the Republic, just to kind of like show that how strong they are.
Yeah, and I do remember being being really drunk at like 2 a.m. and just scrolling through YouTube, Star Wars, Warhammer, Dune lore videos. And
Mm.
in the Star Wars ones, like Who Are the Mandalorians is a really good one that sort of gives a sort of general overview. And yeah, as you say, traditionally the Mandalorians have been used by the Sith to basically fight the Jedi, and that's
Yes.
why I think the Jedi and the Mandalorians have kind of been arch enemies, apart
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
obviously the Sith and the Jedi. But when the Mandalorian meets Ahsoka in season 2, I can't remember what episode, but when they fight off, you see that they're kind of on an even foot
Yeah.
because
Because yeah.
Beskar stops the sabers,
And I
and
think that's the thing that the Sith have done is that because they've used the Mandalorians to fight the Jedi,
mm,
the most effective Jedi killers in the galaxy, other than the Sith, are the Mandalorians because they fought them for so long that they've learned different ways to defeat them.
yeah, like the flamethrower thing,
Yeah,
that's pretty effective. And lightsaber's not going to block all the flame, is it? Just
definitely not.
cook them. This is the way. Flamethrowers on the way. You should buy one of those flamethrowers from Boring Industries that Elon Musk owns. We're not getting paid for that plug, by the way. Maybe we will, hopefully. But yeah, so and I remember hearing in the lore that as you say, Mandalorians are a warrior culture and they
Yeah.
constantly have to prove themselves, and they're known for starting really big wars with the Old Republic.
Yes.
Like there was uh, Mandalore the Ultimate, who basically just started a massive war.
Funnily enough, like he was like twisted and basically manipulated into the war. So you had like an emperor called Emperor Valkorian,
I
who
was going to say Emperor Sheev Palpatine, of course. Ah, yeah, it's just
uh,
Sheev Palpatine, isn't it?
yeah, I
Again, in
know.
a different
Being able
form.
to jump up from body to body, he's been doing it for thousands of years.
Yeah, ironic.
So what he basically did was he convinced the Mandalorians and was like, "You should go fight the Republic to show how strong you are, and here are some devices, here are some weapons for you to
Mm,
do it." And I think the thing that that emperor wanted to do was to test the strength of the Republic and the Jedi. And I think, and the cleverness about that whole thing was that the Jedi Council didn't fight the Mandalorians because
really? Okay.
they perceived that something bigger was there.
There's always what do they say in the Phantom Menace? There's
He's
always
a
a
bigger
bigger
fish,
fish.
yeah.
Star Wars quotes are so important.
So they were like thinking to themselves, who is the real big bad? Are the Mandalorians acting alone or is it someone behind them? So they were kind of like
Mm,
clouded. But the younger Jedi who was seeing like the devastation that the Mandalorians were posing on the Republic, they then got involved and started fighting. But then because literally they started not just fighting for justice, they were fighting for vengeance. So many of them, like Darth Revan, Darth Malak, and other Jedi, turned to the dark side
oh yeah, I
because of
remember
like,
those from Star Wars: and Knights of the Old Republic.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's what Yoda was trying to prevent in the Clone Wars. He kept on, I think what was always on his mind is that we're going to fight, but we need to make sure it's for justice and not vengeance. Because then there was a very, very thin line. Because you kind
Mm,
of see that with Anakin, that when his mother dies, is
yeah.
then when the vengeance starts to come in. And then with that vengeance, you then start to then turn closer and closer to the dark side.
And this is the beauty of Star Wars because I like the tragedy of it. Sith don't just become Sith because they're just completely evil. Like
Yes.
I don't know much about the lore of Palpatine and why he originally became a Sith, or was he just a Sith from the outset? But so many Jedi have gone to the dark side for reasons we totally understand. Anakin, his mother's killed, and he's pissed off. He wants vengeance against the Tusken Raiders, but the thing about vengeance is it just keeps going, and then he wants to protect Padme.
Yeah, and
from
that
death.
fear of the vision he saw of Padme dying.
Yeah.
The fact that he killed her, and the fact that Palpatine manipulated him and used that fear for
Your
him to
new
obtain
empire.
for him to attain more power.
Yeah.
And I think also to that point is that it's the emotions that they try and shut off, that they try and prevent Jedi from going to the dark side. Like they try and prevent you themselves from having like attachments.
Yeah, which is why sometimes you think, like, even though, dark side, light side, but then is the light side really necessarily like the good guys?
I think so. They the light side are good guys, but then I think one of the things you see in like the eighth film is that Luke realized that shutting off from your emotions isn't a good thing.
Oh, yeah, I definitely know
Because
that in real
then
life.
because then the main thing is then you're not a full person. You're not because if you shut yourself off from emotions, so when you are dealing, they basically said if you shut your emotions off,
Mhm.
then when you are attacking someone for attacking somebody else, then you can really fully focus on justice instead of vengeance. But then the main issue is then if you turn off your emotions, is then you lose like emotions like compassion.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I feel like we're going into like a mindfulness podcast
Yes.
now. This is a therapy podcast, not a nerdy geeky Star Wars podcast. But I guess without going off on too much on tangent, I could see why Ashoka Tano. I don't really know much of her story because I never watched the cartoons of Star Wars. But why has she fallen from the light side? But she's not a fallen Jedi. She's just
Mm.
no longer on the light side of the Force. She's like what do they call that? The
Grey
middle,
Jedi, yeah.
a grey Jedi. Well, could have thought of a more inventive name. But yeah, I do find that quite cool, and this is why I like the lore in Star Wars. And people like Count Dooku, for example, he joined the dark side for honorable reasons as well. And then there's some cool redemption stories, like was it Darth Malak or who's the other guy from Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic?
Darth Revan,
Yeah,
yeah.
Darth Revan. Was he the one who he starts. You are him in
Yeah. In
like
Knights of the Old
you
Republic, the
lost your
first one,
memory,
yes.
but he was a Sith. But then he gets knocked out by some explosion. Some Jedi wants to save him, and he redeems
Yeah,
himself through
he
redemption.
does.
You can go from the dark side to the light, as opposed to only ever seeing Jedi falling from the light into the dark, which is cool.
Yeah. And I think like linking this back to the
Yeah, I
Mandalorian,
was gonna
I think
say.
that's one of the things that they were trying to do as well.
Mm.
I think one of the things that they don't want to do is focus on war because they know that that can be used against them. Like even the fact that Emperor Palpatine,
Palpatine. Palpatine.
he was able to use that against the Mandalorians as well, and even divided their people. Some of them were independent and didn't want anything to do with the Empire, while some of the clans wanted to actually support the Empire because they saw them as a big, powerful war machine that they wanted to be a part of.
That could help spread their cult.
Yeah.
Help them fulfill their culture. Are there any Force sensitive Mandalorians?
Yes. So the dark saber,
Yeah.
the person who built it was a Jedi who was a Mandalorian, but then ended up leaving the Jedi Order and then became Mandalore. So that's why it's an
He's
instrument.
Mandalore the Ultimate, or just a different?
No. I think he was.
What
He
do you
was
mean
even.
when you say became Mandalore?
So I think he became I might be wrong, but he might have been the first Mandalore, and used the dark saber and the Force to basically unite the Mandalorian people under one
Right.
leader, and that's why the sword, lightsaber is really important. And it's really important for you to call yourself Mandalore. You must have the dark saber. It's a part of tradition. Like
This is the way.
correct. Like the
just
reason
just
that
say it. Just say it. This is the way.
and the reason like in the Clone Wars when Darth Maul took the dark saber, he was able to then wield power on Mandalore. And I think that's one thing that's weird about Mandalorians is that out of all like the different groups that you see, like we all know that the Sith are xenophobic to the max. They don't like aliens whatsoever.
Yeah, they're
But the
not good guys. The Sith,
But the
that's for
fact that
sure.
the Mandalorians, based on their war culture, are accepting of non-Mandalorians, and they accept them pretty easily.
I know this is what I found a bit weird of season 3 of The Mandalorian is, you know, Grogu, Baby Yoda, um, has been accepted as a foundling, whilst the Mandalorians seem to me like a I was going to say humanic race, but I guess that's not the right word.
I
Like
th-
a race that looks very human, you
the
know.
thing is, I might be remembering the lore wrongly, but fans, please message if please tell me if I'm wrong. But I
Mm.
think originally the original Mandalorians weren't human.
Really?
Like in Star Wars lore, the original Sith species weren't human either. But so the original Sith species met with Dark Jedi, interbreeded, and then developed like the Sith itself. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, that
Damn.
the first the origins of in so not in canon, but
Wait,
in
so
actual
sorry, rewind. So you said the humans breeded with the Sith
yeah.
species.
So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Smooth.
so not to go like down through like a huge rabbit hole here, but the there was a great schism between the Jedi and the Sith because there was the first of all, the Jedi was just all knowledge, whether it's good or bad, it's based on the individual. So they allowed people to look to study the dark side and the light side. But then they then had like a great schism because some of them thought that others were going in the wrong path.
Mm,
So what happens
that's not
is
the way.
there was a and I think that's what fans actually really wanted to see, like the great schism between the Jedi.
I know, and to be honest with this, the way they've expanded the Star
Mm.
Wars universe, because now they're actually bringing in, I thought it was no longer canon, but Heir to the Empire,
Yes, yeah.
Admiral Thrawn. Um, that's really cool because I remember literally when I was like I don't know, I think Revenge of the Sith just came out. And I saw my brother reading a Star Wars book. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Heir to the Empire, what's that?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's like, "This is set after Episode 6 and stuff." But
Mhm.
then I thought that was made all non-canon when Disney brought. But I guess they are. They're scraping
Yeah,
out some of the
so that's
non-canon
I
stuff.
think what they're trying to do is bringing it bit by bit
Yeah.
to so then it can fit the law that they're creating.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think
cool.
that's the cleverness about it. And I think that I would love to see Thrawn and in that universe, the Mandalorian and Ahsoka,
Well,
and
this is
then
it. This is.
the
Mm,
development between the three of them. Because I think one cool thing with the Heir of the Empire for any probably spoilers here is the fact that people think that Thrawn will basically bring in the First Order,
oh
and that
well.
that would be the heir to the Empire that he brings in the First Order, and that the future series of like Ahsoka or even the Mandalorian is their attempts and their failed attempts to prevent Thrawn from developing the First Order.
Well, you know what they say: "Thrawn in the streets, Thrawn in the sheets." That doesn't even make sense. But I think, from what I understand, is that it's going to be like the Avengers in a way that basically you've got all these spin-off superhero, no, like the Marvel universe, got all these
Yeah,
spin-off
yeah,
superheroes with their own movies, their own TV shows, and then there's this one big villain that comes in, and then they make a movie where it brings all these different characters together.
together.
I
Yeah,
mean, already there's been some mingling because, like, season 2 of Mandalorian, you had Ashoka. A
yes,
Book of Boba, you had the Mandalorian and Ashoka because the Book of Boba was so bad they had to bring in the other characters. But essentially, what I think
yeah,
is when Thrawn returns, it will it will be like Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. You know, they'll maybe make a big movie or
yeah,
a TV show that will unite all these characters within that timeline.
yeah.
So whilst we're on the lore, before we move on to like the making of the Mandalorian and some trivia and also some fun quizzes I prepared, what is the time period of the Mandalorian?
The time period I believe is just after the what takes place in the sixth film, so after the second Death Star is destroyed.
It's after Return of the Jedi,
Yes.
right? Yeah, because of course you got the Empire's basically fallen. There are Imperial remnants that are roaming around that
Yeah.
actually, interesting enough, I really like the scene when Moff Gideon is talking to in the season 3, talking to all the other remnant leaders,
Yes.
including one of them who's General Hux is somehow related to General Hux, like
Mm.
in the First Order. But I think I don't know if it's a father son relationship or a brother or something. But the Huxes are in the Empire family business. Essentially, the rebellion has defeated the Empire and become the New Republic.
Mm.
Um, it's cool because it kind of fits with the whole space western thing because they're on the fringes. This is set in the fringes.
The
Of
Outer
it.
Rim, yeah.
Yeah, the
And
outer
like the
rims.
fact that in the last episode, like the fact that the Mandalorian is like, I can be the person who can help support your efforts in the Outer Rim.
What
because
to the New Republic?
yeah, because if you really think about it, the New Republic is stretched very thin, and that's why it's taking so long to deal with the remnants of the Empire.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like funny that they could buy in and get in like privateers to do their job for them in the Outer Rim and to like patrol the Outer Rim, and then
yeah,
give them like some form of like free like sheriffs basically. Have sheriffs in like in the Western films. Have sheriffs around the Outer Rim who basically lock down different sectors of
mm,
the Outer Rim and basically weed out any form of remnants of the Empire.
yeah. And I guess that's how I don't know the name of the rebellion pilot, but you know the one, the bald guy with the beard. Is he? I swear, is he some producer in the Mandalorian? 'Cause someone was telling me that they've got a lot of like just non-cast members just playing some roles, just because it's
Oh,
kind of
I'm not sure.
like John Favreau.
Mm.
He was the voice of what's his name? Paz. You know the
Yeah,
big heavy Mandalorian
yeah.
guy. Yeah. Well, no, he's not actually the physical actor, but he's the voice, which is cool because John Favreau's the director. Is he?
Yes, he's the director,
Yeah,
yes.
which was cool. Very cool. This is the way, you don't actually have to. Anyone can be a voice actor, but can you can you actually act in person? Well, different story entirely. But it's cool. I'm loving how they're expanding the Star Wars universe because you've got Andor, which is set, just at the height of the Empire.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
then they've got announced they're going to do a new movie for sort of like the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. They're going to do
Mm.
a new movie, which to us, I'm definitely not excited about. I don't give a crap about that. They're done. That's ruined. But they are going to expand on that because it's going to be called the New Jedi Order, and I think the sort of rumors are is that Rey will be founding the Jedi Order again, which might be cool.
Oh,
And Ahsoka, the trailer for Ahsoka. If you haven't seen the trailer for Ahsoka, God, I can't wait. It's gonna be
yes.
so cool. And on this show, we're always talking about like every show we talk about on this is like, there's no good or evil. It's just shades of grey, man. It's just shades of grey. It's
Hmm.
dark. It's.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Ahsoka is gonna go for that because no one's really Sith in it, and no one's really a Jedi. There's fallen Jedi, and then there's Ahsoka, who's a grey Jedi of grey side of the Force. So very excited
Yeah, and I
for that.
think like knowing like the motivations of like the Dark Jedi as well. Like what is the purpose? Are they any way linked to Admiral Thrawn? Is it that they have their own separate group they've decided to develop
Mm.
themselves? Like, could they be like old Inquisitors or Inquisitors in training who then are like, the Empire's gone, so let's take this portion of the galaxy to ourselves and see if we can do whatever we want to do here.
I do love the Inquisitor, especially the Grand Inquisitor
Yes,
and
yes.
Kenobi. Just the way he spoke. You came to us from the gutter.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to people like that. Just
Yeah.
like so pronounced. Such a cool character, even though he wasn't in it as much as I would have liked. Okay, okay. So definitely a lot of lore there.
Mm.
So let's talk about characters in The Mandalorian. So who would you say is your favorite character out of all 3 seasons?
I would have to say Moff Gideon, I think, is my favorite character.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I
How
think the
come?
actor really does play him well. And I think he is kind of like a
What's his name? Something Esposito.
yes.
Great actor. Such a great actor. From Breaking Bad. So many good shows he's been in.
And like I think and also like Godfather of Harlem, he's also in that and he does a really good job in that one. And I think he's the type of person who's really good at being a villain.
Hmm.
Because like in many of his roles he chooses to be like a villain. And I think because it was kind of like a different type of villain in the Star Wars universe and
You think he's a different type of villain? In what
because I
way?
think he's it's like you have like Sidious who likes to pull the strings in the background, and then you've got like
Who is also the Senate.
yes,
We
yes,
have to clarify that he is the Senate.
and then you've got like Darth Vader who's like full on in the front, but then you've also got so with Moff Gideon it's kind of like someone who has does the scheming but isn't too bold he's not too afraid or too prideful to then get into the fighting himself, and I think also the fact
Hmm.
that I also like the fact that the having force sensitive clones because that's something that
Yeah.
people in the larger universe have tried multiple times to do. And I think in canon, I think one of the things they were saying was that Sidious and his master Plagueis were working on like something which is called the midichlorians, which is the more midichlorians someone has, the more force ability and force capacity they have.
I don't know, but I thought this was like in and out of the canon because originally Phantom Menace, and then they
Mm.
just dropped it.
No,
Like
no,
there's
but
not
the
really
thing is,
much
it's
talk.
it's still. I think because it's like they don't want to talk about it like in the main series or in like, but they do talk about it in the Clone Wars and in like the cartoon
No,
series,
right, okay.
but they don't talk about it as much as in like the TV series or the films
It's
because it's
almost
just
like
too
because
much.
they just keep having different writers, and that just keeps messing with something.
Which it could be,
Kind of like
yes,
the last trilogy. Like
yeah.
maybe there should be some continuity in who's doing this, but crazy, right? Crazy. Hmm. Okay, it's cool. I mean, Moff Gideon, I love the actor, but if I'm honest,
Mm,
from watching, I haven't watched all of season one, so I could be talking about my arse here. But season two, season three, you don't actually see that much of Moff Gideon. He always comes in like the second half in the last couple
yeah.
of episodes. I just think they could do so much more with Moff Gideon. Like
Mm,
it's getting a bit cyclical. Like end of the second season,
yeah.
develops a new super trooper. The what they called not death troopers. What are the robotic ones that
Mm. I, th-
super death
I think they might have been Death Walkers. No, no, or Death Troopers.
dark troopers? I
Dark
think
Troopers.
yeah,
Yeah.
dark troopers. And it's like that he's badass. It's gonna take him down, and they just get mashed up like easily by Luke Skywalker. Then you never hear from them again. Season three, he develops the super commando trooper, which I've got to admit, I need to start coming up with better names. Like what the super duper ultra mega blocks commando trooper. Like, come on! And we all know they're just cannon fodder. Like they've got all this Mandalorian armor, but yet, for example, Paz just like for some reason they still can't hit crap despite all this wonderful armor on his jetpacks. They still haven't trained him how to shoot properly, and then Paz is just like
Yeah.
blasting down and
Yeah.
just beats him up with his hands. And
One.
again, it gets cyclical
Mm,
because they seem to be easily defeated anyway. All the
yeah.
Mandalorians face off against them in the last episode. Um,
But I think that's kind of an issue with the show, and it was kind of like issue with like the finale of season three was like
okay, what's your issue?
you kind of like you didn't really feel like like you didn't feel like someone could die. You didn't feel
Yeah,
you didn't have that feeling of like, oh my days, the Mandalorian or Grogu or any of the actual other
Baby
Mandalorians
Yoda.
could potentially end up dying. Like the stakes, like I think the one thing that I loved about Andor was that you only knew that Andor was going to survive. That's it.
And even then, you know he's going to die in.
Later on, yeah,
Yeah, spoilers.
and the fact that it kind of was like similar to Kenobi, like with all the things that was happening to Leia and Kenobi, you know that both of them are going to survive.
But
So no
Wade,
matter,
what about Wade? Wade, you were gone too soon. Wade, no.
and it's just the fact that you could kind of see it in the Mandalorian that they weren't going to kill off these characters,
I know.
and it's like if you then know they're not going to die, it then takes away from the high stakes of the situation.
I know exactly, and this is why I feel like the Mandalorian is from like the sort of if you imagine Star Wars of a spectrum of being like dark, like you've got Rogue One, you've got Revenge of the Sith, you've got Andor, and then the other end of the spectrum, you've got the camper end of Star Wars, which is like Book of Boba Fett, I think the Mandalorian, and in some cases some of the last Star Wars movies, although they were dark at points. I think Mandalorian's from that camper side where basically there's nothing bad is ever going to happen to the main characters. They might get imprisoned or something,
Yeah,
which seems to happen. They keep getting imprisoned or caught or something, and then they get broken out. Like, how easy is it to sneak into an Imperial military complex and break someone out? It's just every Star Wars movie, except for Andor, maybe to an extent.
kind of like that, but that was like a
Actually,
prison
yeah, Andor,
planet.
yeah.
So
Yeah, which made it seem more realistic, call it. But people died in it. A lot of characters you thought were going to be like serious main characters died, apart from Andor,
and I
obviously.
think also with the prison was the main purpose of it was constantly convincing people not to communicate with each other
Yeah,
and realizing that because of the new initiative that the emperor and the imperium had implemented, that they would have more and more prisoners, so that the prisoners would vastly outnumber the guards.
mm.
So they had to just keep them in line. And what
Fear will keep them in line.
and then once they've lost the fear, because they're like, we're not leaving here alive,
Yeah,
they lost their grip because they were so far outnumbered. So that is believable because, like, in any prison, if the actual if you could get all of the prisoners inside a prison to say, you know what, no matter what, we're getting out of here. 9 times out of 10, they'd be able to break out. But because some people are like, well, I've only got 1 year, so what's the point of me trying to break out and adding more years to my
And also,
sentence?
when you get served food at lunchtime, don't eat that.
Yeah.
There you go. I think that's probably the only time I'm going to use that reference, but good reference to the Mandalorian when Baby Yoda just keeps eating everything. Oh, sorry, Grogu. Uh, I'd say if I was going to think about my favorite
Mm.
character, I think I really, really love Bo-Katan. I think because
Mm.
I'm kind of in love with her. You know, she's cute. And also the actor that plays her, Katie Sackhoff, is from Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
one of the best science fiction TV shows in the universe, apart from it kind of went downhill towards the end. But so cool seeing her in The Mandalorian, keeping up
With the
to an
sci-fi,
actor in
yeah.
the science fiction world. Yeah, really cool. And I kind of like her story, how, she's the heir to the royalty of Mandalore, and she must unite everyone. But at the same time, she has to be a kind of a tough leader and make some
Yeah.
tough decisions that necessarily won't go down too well with everyone. Speaking of heirs, actually, I mean, this is a bit of a big overview, but this is a question I had because this is definitely something that came up as why is the Mandalorian considered the heir to Star Wars fandom? I feel like this question's a little bit dated now since Andor's come out, since Ahsoka and
I know
stuff.
why, I know
But
why.
did you get what I mean? That
Yeah, yeah. It's because of the flops of the 3 films,
mm,
the sequels. But 7 was all right, and most fans will say
yeah,
it's a
seven's okay.
rehash of Episode 4, but it's still a very good film, and
Yeah,
it opens so many different doors. But because of 8 and 9, the
oh
fans had
gosh,
basically lost faith and basically were like, "Can Disney do anything right with Star Wars?" Like Rogue One was like a reprieval, but I think because Rogue One was like something just on its own, and I think that it was so headed towards like the fans and nostalgia that it worked so well. But then when like episode 8 and 9 came through, and then also the Han Solo film as
mm.
well, that many people forget that it actually came out. And
Yeah, I thought it was decent, but a lot of people do
yeah,
hate on it.
but then that's the issue, is that people would say there's only one great film from the sequel era. So from Disney's acquisition
Mhm.
of Star Wars, there's only been like one great film.
That
So
Rogue One, would you say?
yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that fans were like, "All right, we'll give Mandalorian a go. It can't be worse than what we've seen before."
So it's not
And
necessarily that it's particularly amazing. It's just not as
no, no,
bad
no, no.
as.
But the thing is, it was amazing and it was something different and it took everyone by surprise. So that brought some fans' faith back into Star Wars.
Yeah, I think so. 'Cause certain elements of it, like the soundtrack, was its own unique thing. It
Yes.
it didn't really borrow much from the original Star Wars
Yeah,
soundtrack.
because the composer is Ludwig Göransson.
Yeah, and he's doing a lot of good stuff. He
Yeah.
did The Last of Us.
He
Um,
also did Black Panther. He did
oh yeah, yeah,
he did the work for Black Panther, and also people might not know, he also helped with the Childish Gambino song "This Is America."
yeah.
He's credited on that song as well.
Oh my goodness, he's
Yes.
everywhere. God, we need to have like a face-off. John Williams,
Hans
Hans
Zimmer,
Zimmer, and Ludwig. What was his name? Ludwig.
Göransson.
Yeah, we need to have them face off. That'd be the most epic. I'd literally sit there all night with some popcorn.
Actually, that would actually be something that we could do. Like, pick a side and say that you take John Williams, I take Hans Zimmer. Pick the best. You know how they do like the verses with music.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
pick the best 15 songs
Oh,
that either of them done. Because like Hans Zimmer did Lion King, and I was like, wow,
yeah. We even forgetting about like Howard Shaw as
yeah.
well, and all these.
And
But
like, and the fact that I think also people forget that John Williams did Indiana Jones. Like that theme is like iconic.
yeah, yeah, that's true. We do need to do an episode on Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Looking at you, audience members, you want to come up for Indiana Jones? We're looking for you. So another question I have is,
Mm.
other than a space western, do you see any other homages to other genres in The Mandalorian?
Mm. At times, you could kind of call it like a thriller. That's more like on an episode by episode basis.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think
I think you could kind of do like action adventure.
yeah, you could say action adventure. I think this one's a bit of a loaded question 'cause it's quite specific to
Mm.
some episodes. But in season 2, episode 5, that's the episode where Mandalorian meets Ahsoka. Am I saying it right? Is it Ahsoka or
I
Ashoka?
think Ahsoka.
Okay. This is the way. This is the way to pronounce things. Season 2, episode 5.
Hmm.
There's a lot of homage to Japanese cinema. So if you do watch that episode, it's very much is a tribute to classic films of a Japanese author called Akira Kurosawa.
Mhm.
Probably not pronouncing that right either, but very traditional, cool, classic Japanese movies where you'll have like two samurai facing off with a standoff. There's lots of mist, a lot of the camera
Oh, that
angles.
type of yeah.
Rewatch season 2, episode 5. The
Mhm.
way they show Ahsoka in it, almost parallel, and sometimes like the standoffs in Mandalorian also sort of pay homage to it. And looking at what one of the directors said, I don't know if it was John Favreau or maybe it was one of the writers, but they said
Mm.
that they wanted this to be a space themed on a space western, but as well as samurai movies as well.
Yeah, because he is kind of like a samurai, like
He's like a
based on.
space knight, isn't
Yes,
he?
he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, which is interesting because he's originally, I guess, he's a bounty hunter, so he's an anti-hero. He's just
Yeah.
doing it all for money. But in this, he slowly becomes more and more noble. He builds an attachment to Grogu, Baby Yoda. It's kind of cute. Hmm.
And I think also like his interactions with like Baby Yoda kind of like break down like the wall he's built up because of the trauma he had in early life, and also softened him to be like, okay, then I kind of do care about the Republic doing well, because having all these Imperials all over the place isn't going to make my corner of the galaxy any better.
Yeah, and also, by the way, you could just easily swap that in for Joel in The Last of Us.
But
Like
I think
the
Joel's a
Mandalorian.
bit too a bit too violent compared to.
Yeah, he got very violent and a lot darker. The Mandalorian's very camp compared to The Last of Us, and yeah, I've got to admit, Last of Us, Mandalorian, same thing. I've said this in the Last of Us episode, but older, wiser, more more like villainous anti-hero character escorts a younger child through dangerous times. Exactly the same thing. I feel like
You could
Pedro
add in The
Pascal.
Witcher there as well. So
Yeah, every
actually,
episode's an adventure. Yeah.
I think I've forgotten. Yeah, someone created a meme. You know the Spider-Man meme when the three Spider-Mans pointing at
Yeah.
each other. Someone did one based on like Batman, Batman and Robin, The Witcher and Ciri, and The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Ah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
fact that you could say that all of them have similar aesthetics and behave like dark, brooding characters who save a child and then basically adopts them as their son or daughter, and then also train them as well.
Well, there we go. We could even say this is an homage to another genre, really, isn't it? The companionship
Yeah,
genre. We love that in cinemas. There's so many uh, movies or TV shows
yeah,
that follow that. And I guess Star Wars. Because the thing about Star Wars is that they're basically, rather than just being a space opera, which is what I consider like the first three Star Wars, like episode 1, episode
Mm.
2, episode 3, then they're now basically making it okay. It's Star Wars, but it's actually a Western show, or it's Star Wars, but it's actually a heist and a prison break show, like Andor.
Andor,
And
yeah,
I kind of like that because homages can be quite satisfying for people as long as they're not too obvious and bait. And I feel like although the Mandalorian's good, it's very obviously a Western. You could very easily recognize that. Like when he's season 2, when he's rolling into town on his hover bike, and
yeah.
it's literally a Western, but he's on a hover bike. Like it is interesting. And I guess one thing it is a really big homage to
Mm.
is video games. Because
Yeah.
especially season 2, I don't really know what season 1 was like. So I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I can't believe I'm on this podcast talking about the Mandalorian. I am a fraud. I'm sorry. Enough of that. But it's like a video game because season 2 and season 3, I think, although season 3 is a bit different. Season 2, it literally he goes to a planet. there's an overall storyline, something about Grogu. He's trying to find out something there. But he goes to a planet. He has like a quest to. He gets sidetracked. He meets someone else, new character. He's like, "Oh, I'll tell you this, but you must help me with this."
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
meets new
Side
character.
quest esque, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so many side quests, and like the third to last episode in Mandalorian season 3 with the droids and stuff. That was again another side quest episode. Like everything got wrapped up in like the stuff between Bo-Katan and United getting the other Mandalorians back on our side took about 5 minutes. The whole episode. The
Yeah.
rest of it was a cool side quest, I will say, but it was kind of irritating me a little in season 2. I was like, God, you've only got 22 minutes per episode. Like, I've spent all week watching this. This is waiting for this. This is lockdown. I need more. And you just give me a
Yeah.
bloody side quest.
Yeah, because I know that some of my friends were really upset with like the whole the frog woman and her husband story.
Yeah.
Like they're like, let's get back to the action here, people.
I will say there's a fan theory that Grogu's a Sith because he's basically committing genocide. Because when he keeps eating the eggs.
Yeah.
Don't need that. There you go. We referenced it again. The most obscure reference in the Mandalorian. Yeah, and he's just eating the eggs of an endangered species. Is Grogu actually secretly a Sith committing genocide? He's too cute though. Baby Yoda. Yeah. And I guess I wonder if that's becoming more of a common thing in television because again, The Last of Us, which is kind of like the Mandalorian, as we said with Pedro Pascal, it has a questing element as well
Yeah.
because you're trying to explore the universe and each episode that they've got their main quest, which is to get Ellie to the Fireflies so they can develop a cure, which means slicing her brain open and killing her. Spoilers. But every other episode is a side quest.
Yeah.
There's little elements that build up the main story, but again, it's just a bit of character development for the main two. But then just each episode, new characters, and if they somehow make it one more episode while they die the next episode for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a genre, this side
Yeah.
questing video game sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I get what you're saying. Like there are even like books like that as well. Because I think like the fact and The Witcher does it from I think like season 1 of The Witcher does that as well. I think there must be fans, if you know, please tell us. Like there must be like a storytelling within like film and TV and books, a style where at the end of each chapter or each episode, they then resolve that small issue, but then continue with the larger issue that presses throughout that whole book series or that
Yeah.
whole season or that whole portion of the film. And I think that it kind of is also gives like relief to the audience and also allows like new people to get into the TV series. Like you can hop in
At any
episode
time,
and
yeah.
but stuff like Game of Thrones when it's like something like even a minor story can go from episode 3 up to episode 7,
Yeah, it's a
and then
long side
fans
quest.
just jump in and like I don't really understand what's going on, but I think they do it if they want to make it more accessible, and
Yeah.
also like if certain things aren't needed,
Yeah.
because it kind of feels like The Mandalorian and even like The Last of Us, and even The Witcher, things were shortened so that it just focused on what was actually needed, and I think that was kind of like the issue with like Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, that it tried to tell you everything. So all of the smaller stories, they were trying to like full on develop and then carry on from one episode to another. So you have all the different groups which are kind of like independent of each other, but then
Yeah.
they are connected. But then the issue then you have is then you're
It was
thinking,
crap.
what did this person do 2 episodes ago? I don't
Yeah.
remember
Sorry,
what they
who is this
did.
guy? Who is this
Yeah,
guy?
yeah, like the people who are in Numenor learning how to become ship captains, and then you don't
Fast
see them.
travel.
You don't
Yeah.
see them for a while. You then see them end up leaving to help support the elf. What's her name? Galadriel, I believe. Yeah,
Galadriel,
to
yeah.
support her. But then you're like, okay, then wait. Now we're back with them. What are they doing now? And I think you have to kind of like either have really good script writing where you actually care about the smaller stories that get carried on from like
Yeah,
one
like a Game of
episode to
Thrones.
another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm.
or you just conclude these smaller stories and then have a overarching season story that takes you throughout the season.
Yeah, it's a good point. And in case it wasn't clear to our fans already, the Lord of the Rings of Power was crap. I mean, to be honest, if you watch we did do an episode on Rings of Power. If you watch it, we were quite fair to it. I thought it was okay, but considering how much money went into it, it was not that great.
And
Yeah.
I think also, as you said, because of the way that the Mandalorian does it, it also builds up on the world and gives you a better understanding of like how the world works because it's different places for each of like the episodes.
Yeah, and I think that's what appeals why sort of the Mandalorian's the heir to the Star Wars fandom. Because like Star Wars as not as a genre, but like the style of Star Wars is kind of camp, you know. There's lots of aliens with like cool prosthetics. You know, when they were doing CGI, it just didn't work with the first three Star Wars movies. But when they went back to doing prosthetics, people
Mm.
really like that. The aliens aren't necessarily main, like never really main characters. They're always like kind of
Yeah, yeah,
background side characters. And that kind of adds to sort of the campness and fun of it. You know, these canteens, these settings and stuff. But you know, it's about the atmosphere, the settings and stuff. You know, kind of like what we're talking about Harry Potter. Like that's what
yeah,
makes it so cool. Like the ghosts, the weird magical places like Diagon Alley. Unless you've got like the canteens, the backwater
yeah,
crappy
yeah.
towns like Tatooine, Jakku, with all the different aliens. But then they're not the main characters. You know, there's always
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big story. But I guess the Mandalorian is why it works is it because it explores that. It has this
Hmm.
questing, side
Yes,
questing
yeah.
element. You meet a new alien, the Mon Calamari, which, by the way, is hilarious. The squid-looking people, the name they've chosen for their race is the Mon Calamari, and I'm like, God, they were literally at a Greek restaurant when they came up that or Turkish restaurant. Like, oh,
And I think
brilliant.
also what really does help is that it gives the setting of the world. So like
Mm,
throughout, you're able to see that it tells you like throughout that one Mandalorians are feared and also honored, but also can be seen as targets because they're seen as like, for example, Spartans. They're seen as like
mm,
knights. So people want to say, "Oh, I took down a Mandalorian. I took down a knight and
yeah.
stole his armor." And also the fact that their armor is very valuable as well. You also see the some people within the remnants of the empire have turned themselves into like warlords as well. That's something that is prevailing, and also the
Wait,
fact
what do you
that
mean by warlords? And that they're no longer part of the Empire, they've just taken all the weapons and just
yeah,
become
taken
rogue.
have gone rogue and then taken a corner of the galaxy for themselves. And also, you get to see like what the New Republic is doing, and also the fact that the New Republic is trying to stabilize everything
And I
after
also
taking
like the
over.
amnesty program as well, trying to reintegrate because the empire was a massive
Yeah, yeah,
bureaucratic machine, so trying to reintegrate people. But clearly, that's like there's a lot of shady people still
yeah.
in the program.
Funnily enough, in the expanded universe, a lot of like the Imperials were kind of like pardoned and brought into the Republic because it was like we can't literally put all of them on trial.
Mm,
And I think one of the things that does come up in the which I think they'll bring into the actual canon universe is which I think fans would love to see, like the transition, like the government decisions and the decisions that the Republic has to make to then build a republic after the remnants of an empire that's fallen. And like the tough decisions they have to make.
yeah,
Like you know that this person's been a moth and has been basically being corrupt over this planet for or this system for years, but you then need someone to manage that said system, and he knows that system in and out. And now there's pirates in that region. And another, I think that's another
the
cool thing.
Pirate King.
And I've got another cool thing about the fact that they talk about in the Mandalorian is the fact that there are people trying to fill in the vacuum because the empire's technically gone or is dying.
Mm,
So then I think that's another problem the Republic has is that we need to some bring in some of the Imperials to stop potentially people taking control of parts of the Outer Rim or other parts of the galaxy because there's a power vacuum.
yeah, and you see that in Andor and a little bit in Mandalorian, especially in
Mhm.
season
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
You know, when they're talking about what's the name of the planet that Grief Karga is the high
Mm,
trade envoy or whatever of.
I've forgotten.
Well, anyway, the point is
Yeah.
they're not when the Pirate King attacks, then they haven't signed the charter with the rebellion. Um, and you know that guy, the I don't know what you. God, I'm such a noob of this. He goes to like, not the rebellion, the New
The New
Republic's high
Republic, yeah.
command. Like, we need to send troops there. They're under attack, and like, oh, they didn't sign the charter. And then, what's the character that's in the amnesty program that's shady and mind flays, pen Pershing?
I've forgotten the name. I'm also terrible at names as well.
Yeah, I know. Well, hopefully the audience has watched it. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian, then this is hopeless watching this podcast episode. But yeah, they basically say this is what we did in the Empire, and this is why it worked. Um, but this sort of overarching theme of order versus freedom.
Yes.
You either have order and no freedom, or you have freedom and potentially issues like this, chaos. And there's a lot of references to what happened in real life. The way, as you say, the rebellion are bringing in some Imperials. Basically, they're pardoned. Like, okay, time for you to just do your same role, but you're now part of the New Republic.
Yeah,
Here's a nice
yeah,
badge, because it happened after World War II in Japanese occupied Korea and in Nazi Germany as
yeah,
well. Although hardcore Nazis were kicked out, and as a problem, there was denazification. Still, there was a lot of need to bring in soldiers from the Wehrmacht to be in the West German army once NATO allowed it to be
yeah, yeah,
reestablished and
yeah,
stuff, because the expertise is still there. We don't give a crap what you did in the past, as long as you didn't commit
yeah.
genocide and you weren't a
And
proper
also, let's
Nazi.
not forget that the Nazi scientists were also taken by the Soviet
Yeah,
Union and the
Operation
American,
Paperclip.
yeah,
Yeah.
to set up for the space race as well, which is, and I think that's a key thing that Star Wars wants to point out, that once an evil foe is defeated, it's not just like they're gone, Vader's dead, Sidious is dead, the main hierarchy of the Empire is gone. Now they've been defeated. No, that there's still remnants. There's still, also there was no armistice signed. There was no like, okay,
There
we've
was
lost the.
actually no peace treaty.
There's no peace
It's just
treaty at all.
remnants of the empire.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like until a peace treaty is signed, they're still technically at war.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's true, and I guess we'll see the First Order spring up, possibly with Admiral Thrawn. Can't wait to see this Thrawn because he's blue and he's actually an alien,
Yeah,
which
Chiss.
is cool because they're gonna have, I guess, a main protagonist that's an alien in the Star Wars universe. Because otherwise, it's always been kind of side-ish characters roles or background characters. Like,
Mhm.
okay, Darth Maul was an alien, but literally kind of a side-ish
But
character.
also Ahsoka, I think people also forget that she's also an alien. And I think
Oh
that
yeah.
I think
Wow.
I
Whoops.
think that's the first. I think yeah, that is the first actual proper series that's focusing on an alien, because like
Yeah, that's
Rebels
true.
was focused on human being, Clone Wars was focused on the war
It's all
itself.
very like human centric, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think also a bit of spoilers here, that I think the major thing that's coming up in Star Wars is the development of the First Order, and also how the First Order manipulates the Republic. Because, like, in actual the expanded universe, everyone knew that, because they told everyone that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker.
Oh right.
But
Okay.
in canon, they don't tell anybody.
Yeah, and I was seeing that Moff Gideon didn't know that
Yeah,
Vader was Anakin Skywalker.
yeah,
Mm.
it's found out. It's in one of the books that have now been made canon, that they find out later, and it was an actual undercover First Order agent in the Republic who exposes it, because Leia wants to run to be the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. So they
Yeah.
basically then post that out and say, "Oh, she can't be in charge of the Republic because her father was Anakin Skywalker, the one who did so many war crimes, killed so many people." And I think she also didn't tell um, Kylo Ren, that he didn't tell, or what's Kylo Ren's actual name?
Ben.
Ben. Yes, she didn't tell Ben at all,
Mm.
and that kind of turned him to the dark side as well, because he's like, wait a second, my father was Anakin Skywalker, who was also Darth Vader, and he starts hinging that,
Wait,
oh
Ben?
yeah, so
No,
Ben,
but he's the son of
so his
Solo.
and Leia, yeah.
Grandfather.
So he says grandfather was Darth Vader,
You
and
said
that,
father there. I was
sorry,
like, this is
yeah,
getting Game of Thrones here. Bit of
and then
incest.
that's what kind of, and I think that's what grips him, and that's why he's so interested in Darth Vader. That's why he has that helmet with him. That's why he wears the Kylo Ren helmet.
I will finish what you started.
Yes,
Yeah.
because he's basically like, that is my grandfather. This is my heritage. But then he doesn't realize, wait, no, Anakin was actually, Darth Vader died, and Anakin came back and
Yeah.
saved the day.
Yeah, that's true. That's missed out, actually. His mum didn't have time to fully explain that before he went rebel. Okay, let's have some trivia and then some
Mhm.
quick fire questions. So, and I feel like it's very obvious. Some trivia. Lizzo and Jack Black do a cameo in Mandalorian
Yeah.
season 3. I've got to admit, I don't know how I feel about cameos, especially from non-actors like Ed Sheeran in Game of Thrones, Lizzo in this. I just feel like you're kind of breaking the fourth wall, especially in
Yeah.
fantasy and science fiction. I kind of want to escape from real world. I don't want to see Ed Sheeran in bloody Game of Thrones. They're
Yeah,
usually terrible actors.
and I think
Maybe not Lizzo. She was.
but I think to your point, I think the issue is that it then's kind of like another form of pandering.
Yeah,
It's like, "Oh, you need to watch this episode because Ed Sheeran's in it." And I think it's like it's pandering to like, "Oh, maybe we can bring in a bigger audience. We can bring in Ed Sheeran fans so then watch this episode." But then if it's like, "No, Ed Sheeran's playing an important character and is a very good actor," then that's more understandable. But just having him there to basically bring in more fans and also pander to fans is kind of like I kind of agree with you. It kind of then takes off. And it also kind of like
yeah,
takes off from like the seriousness.
yeah. And I know Mandalorian is the most serious of shows, but then things like Game of Thrones, it's just like especially it's breaking that fourth wall too much. I just find it cringy and cheap. You know, this is how we're gonna get some views. We're gonna put Ed Sheeran in, bro, and it's just
Yeah, yeah. The height of
yeah,
his height of his fame. Let's put him in this episode of Game of Thrones, and you're like, you could have just put him like as a you could have just not had him at all, or if he can act, play an actual key role. So then we can be like, oh my days, did you see Ed
yeah,
Sheeran? He
like
was
Lady
amazing.
Gaga. Lady Gaga's a good actor,
Yeah.
actually. Funny enough, good transition.
And I think that's the weird thing about it that before when we'd see like musicians going into film, we'd be like, oh no, not another
Terrible
one.
acting.
But I
Yeah, here we
think they're
go.
actually starting to get better. Like
Rihanna's been in quite a few movies, actually.
yeah. But I think like each movie she progressively gets better.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And like even like Beyonce, like I remember in like
Gold, Austin Powers Gold
yeah,
member. Yeah,
I think, and then she was like in Pink Panther, but then eventually she started to get better as well. So I
yeah,
think she was also in like the Etta James film as well. But I think like they actors are getting better, musicians. But one of the things that's really weird is that you can't really say that a rapper being in a TV show or film has played his role terribly. Like you've got Ice T, who's in like Law and Order and been in Law and Order for years. You've got Ice Cube, you've got LL Cool J, you've got like now Ti's in films as well. You've got Method Man. You've got so many different rappers who've gone into acting. Like even Common as well has been in so many different
oh
films.
yeah. She was just thinking, Method Man. He was in Daredevil, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
so cool.
he's actually been in films. I think he's also
And
in
some comedies as well, I think.
I think he's in not Power. What was the other one? Black Mafia Family, which is like
Right.
a gangster TV show. He's in that, and he's really good in that as well. And Snoop Dogg is in his cameos. He's been a pretty good actor as well.
Sorry, he wasn't in Method Man. Wasn't in Daredevil. He was in Luke
Luke Cage,
Cage. That
yeah,
was it.
yeah, because they swap
Oh,
hoodies, yeah, yeah.
I love Luke Cage. Yeah,
And I
he
think
always
like
wears the same hoodie, and it just
yeah,
gets shot up
and
every
like
time.
funnily enough, allegedly George Lucas, before Tupac died, wanted Tupac to play, who was another rapper who was a very, very good actor. He wanted Tupac to play Mace Windu.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
my
there are heavily rumors
god.
that that especially because I think because we were so young at the time that Tupac was like the new it thing because he was like he was rapping but also acting, and each time he was acting, he was getting better and better in the roles he was playing.
Yeah.
And I think George Lucas said the thing that he liked about Tupac was like the aura that that Mace Windu has, that
Yeah.
he saw that in Tupac as well. And I'm just thinking like hilariously that if he'd got what he wanted, you would have had Tupac as Mace Windu and Leonardo DiCaprio as Anakin Skywalker, and just think how that film would have looked.
I could dig that. That would have been interesting. It was cool having Samuel L. Jackson anyway, because the
Yeah.
character he plays in Pulp Fiction, like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, did I stutter? Like, he's definitely the more intimidating Jedi in it.
yeah.
And the fact that he's got like a different colored lightsaber is cool. Um, oh, what was I gonna say? And yeah, cameos in Star Wars, I feel like they have done better in the past. So stormtroopers in the most recent
Mm,
trilogy,
yeah.
Force Awakens, Last Jedi, etc. funny enough, there's so many cameos in it, but because you can't see your face, you wouldn't know. But like Daniel Craig, who plays James Bond, cameos as a stormtrooper in one. Couple of like directors and stuff. John Favreau as Paz in this. Oh, that's not really a cameo; it's a recurring role, I guess.
Mm.
Last cameo's done right, I think. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
when it's not doesn't break the fourth wall, but just when you read up about it
You're like,
online, like,
oh,
oh
that's
my
so nice.
god,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Daniel Craig as a stormtrooper. Yeah, that was cool. There's also interesting things how like so in Mandalorian, Carl Weathers, who plays Grief Karga, actually
Mm.
directs an episode 4 in season 3,
Okay.
and I just love Carl Weathers because he's been
Yeah.
in Rocky,
Yes,
like
yes, yes. Have you
Apollo Creed.
have you seen him play Carl Weathers in Arrested Development?
Yeah, he is
I
the
know, yeah,
bounty
yeah,
hunter. Was
yes,
called Ice.
yes,
Yeah.
so hilarious.
Oh
Oh.
god, yeah. I forgot about that. I just can't. I
And I,
know he's a different character, but Gene Parmigiano,
and I
the
think
mum loves.
also I think it's just so weird, like how he's aged a lot slower than everybody else in Rocky.
Mm.
And I think, like, if you look at Sylvester Stallone, maybe there's an age gap, but the fact that he still looks like Carl Weathers looks like he could potentially be in his 50s.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I mean, the Rocky film, Rocky 1 was like in the 70s.
Mm.
Carl Weathers is aging really bloody
Yeah,
wow. Like,
yeah,
holy cow.
yeah. And
What's the secret?
I think one thing I did like about his character, I think I would say he's my second favorite character because, like, remember when he gets like shot in like it's the end of like season 1 when he gets shot, and then
I haven't seen it, but go on.
I think then Grogu goes up to him and he's like, "Oh my god, this thing's trying to eat me," but actually he heals him.
Oh,
He
really?
actually uses,
Oh,
and I think that's the first time we actually see him
Baby
use the Force
Yoda.
to like heal people.
Yeah, but then there's also scary moments where people think he's the dark side. Like when apparently in season 1 he
Yeah,
tries
Force
to
choke.
choke someone, he eats all those
Yes, this
baby
the
eggs
woman.
as
Yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah.
I think it's like when
But then
people thought
But then he's like, what would an adolescent child with the Force do? Like,
well, I guess they don't know right and wrong. They can't
yeah.
be light side or
And
dark
then
side at
also
that point.
like, you sometimes like you see young children like in the shops like hitting their parents, and you're like, but then you know that children sometimes do that. Like, how many times have we seen like in films when children have powers and they have a tantrum that they then just destroy
Oh,
stuff in their way?
the boys
Yeah,
that could be happening with Homelander's son. Yeah,
yeah, and the fact that he has power, and I think also for children, their emotions sometimes is on impulse,
yeah.
which
Well,
I
they
think
have
is
no
another
sense of
thing.
responsibility as well, and that's why it's like fascists always try and indoctrinate children, or also swing it around the other way, like communists as well, because they're so malleable. They don't know
Yeah,
what's right and
yeah,
wrong, and like films like and TV, books like 1984. They've always got these youth camps set up, and the kids are the ones pointing out people, informing, and they'll inform on
yes,
their own
yes, yeah,
parents
yeah,
because they
yeah, yeah,
won't know the repercussions of their actions.
yeah.
It's interesting.
And it's also weird that he's in his 50s.
Who, Carl
No,
Weathers?
no, no, Grogu. He's in his 50s.
Looking good for his age. Oh, wow. Where's the race that Yoda and
That's
Grogu is?
funny enough. I just watched a video before this. It's
What's that
not.
race called?
It's never named, and George
Really?
Lucas says he's never going to name them because he wants it to be something like, you know how
A
people say
mystery.
in sci-fi you always have to, and fantasy you have to have mysteries. So like,
Yeah,
there's only
yeah.
like
Warhammer's good at that.
five recordings of their 5/6 recordings of their species in in Star Wars. I think including canon and the expanded universe. And I think Yoda dies when he's 900 and something, and people are asking, did he die of old age or did he die because he was just tired of like, like
I'm sick of your crap, Vader.
I think more like kind of like that, yeah. But then also like he used all his last energy to like train Luke,
Yeah.
and then because he used all of that energy, he then passed away. Because like if
Hmm.
Grogu's 50 and Yoda lived until like he was 900 and something, like he has a hell of a long time to live.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe in 20 years' time, when they've remade Star Wars for like the seventh time, whether he's in.
Or what they probably might do is just do like a stopgap and be like, okay, then with this new Jedi Order, is Grogu, and this is what he's been doing in the
Yeah,
last
that's true. With
how many
Ray.
years? I think last 35 years. I think.
Oh, but I feel like that'd be them desperately trying to bring some like more favorable characters from more favorable parts of the Star Wars universe to try and save what was a mess for Episode 7, 8, and 9.
I think based on what they've done with Thrawn, and based on what they've been able to build, I think the new Jedi Order could work really well because
Oh,
what
I'm gonna hold you to that.
what
Famous last words,
what
folks.
they've done is that in just the interest of time, we'll be as quick as possible through this. In the expanded universe, Thrawn meets the Empire and meets the Emperor in the Clone Wars, and basically says that um, I'm from this species called the Chiss. The Emperor knows who he is because the Emperor has like all these old Sith text which
The
mentions
sacred Sith text. the sacred Jedi texts.
and he also has Jedi texts as well that he's confiscated, and also the Sith have confiscated for years. So he knows who the Chiss are, and the Chiss were like part of the wider galaxy. But then something big happened, which then cut them off, and like the hyperspace routes to their side of space is hard to get to. So he basically goes to Sidious and says, well, Palpatine at the time, that there's a great threat that is coming um called the Yuzhong Vong, and then he basically then works with Sidious. He then goes back to his people. Then later on, when Sidious becomes emperor, he comes back and they work together to develop the empire that would then fight off this evil race, which the Chiss have been fighting for years, that come from outside of the galaxy.
So what? The whole idea of the Empire is to fight an outer evil. That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's kind of how like
and they trying to like bring that into canon. So in the canonized books of Thrawn, he's fought the Grisks on many different levels, but the Grisks are more, instead of like enforcers, they're more manipulative. They basically first convince basically a general to attack the Chiss. Then they try and break them from within, and then they basically then try and do an all out attack on them, and they all fail. But because something the Chiss has is that the Chiss species only attack after they've received aggression, so they'll never take the first strike. But
just like NATO.
but Thrawn did. So then he gets exiled and then joins up with the Empire, and then he worked with, funnily enough, Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars because the Separatists were trying to work with some other species in his neck of the galaxy to basically help to further the Separatist movement. So then he works with Anakin. Then when he comes back to join the Empire after Order 66, he actually realizes that Anakin is Vader, just on basically his movements and his mannerisms, but never says anything because he knows that Vader would probably just kill him if he found out. But I think Vader kind of knows that Thrawn knows who he is. So then
I know that you know that.
so then I think one of the things that people believe is that Sidious set up the Empire to stop the new species, which has been canon, the Grisk, and that's what the new Jedi Order is going to be focusing on, and that's the reason why Thrawn supported the Empire, was to create a force in the galaxy that he could bring into the fight to fight against the Grisk.
I don't know. Sounds like justification for oppression.
But
it does make sense.
It makes sense.
Historically, that's how like the England developed as a country and a state because of the Viking invasions. Basically, the state apparatus and taxation was formed to raise armies to fight the Vikings.
Yeah.
And once they did that, we're like, well, we've still got this taxing coming in. Let's move the government into other areas like the economy and stuff. So that does make sense, and it's like what happened in real life, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the stupid thing that the New Republic does is that they they demilitarize, and I think that also helps the First Order. So what I'm seeing after they've now defeated the First Order at the end of Episode 9, are they going to stupidly going to demilitarize again and then be unprepared to fight a new invader?
Exactly, that's the problem with democracy, because then suddenly when everyone's like, "Oh, war's bad," and then it allows aggressors to manipulate and take the upper hand, and sometimes the people who are the most anti-war are actually just puppets of Lenin in World War One. It's true. It's true. It'd be interesting to see. And what was it Bane says in The Dark Knight Rises? It seems victory has defeated you.
Yes.
Exactly. You're defeated by your own victory. Okay, some quick fire quizzes.
Mhm.
I'm going to show you a series of pictures. Is this the Senate?
Yes, yes, that is the Senate.
That's not the Senate.
I think he becomes the Senate, but no, no, no.
Really? Oh, I've just lost on the first stage of my quiz. Okay, fair enough. Oh, well, spoilers? Well, our audience members didn't hear that. They didn't see it. I mean, if you could see it on that camera. Oh, God, spoilers. Okay, well, hold on, end of the quiz. I was then going to show Jar Jar Binks, man. Is that the Senate? And you'd be like, no. And then after that, show who
yeah,
it is.
but
He is the Senate. But too
funnily,
late.
funnily enough, people were thinking that Jar Jar Binks was also a Darth.
Yeah, Kylo Ren before he took off the mask in the
Yeah.
trailers. They're like, that's Jar Jar Binks. Also, that is what I was going to say. Cameo from Jar Jar Binks
Yes,
in The
yes.
Mandalorian. The flashbacks of Grogu. Was it the Jedi that saved
Yeah.
Grogu? Is actually
He's
Jar
the
Jar
actor that plays Jar Jar Binks. Yes, yeah.
Oh, I just wish he said something. I know, Mr. Jar Jar Binks.
I think he hates Jar Jar. I think the actor hates him because I think he then got typecasted after doing that.
Yeah.
And I think like he's now happy that thankfully Jar Jar Binks is dead. And I think George Lucas is I think he brought Jar Jar Binks in to bring like some kind of like child element to it.
That's most hated character.
But
in Star
then
Wars,
but then that's why you don't really see him in the third film at all. You see him
briefly, yeah.
You see him in parts of the second film, but then
he becomes
when
a
it
member
gets
of the Senate.
well, then when it becomes like the important parts of the second film, when they're fighting on Geonosia, he's nowhere to be seen because they're like, you know what, he's too childish. And then afterwards, like on Revenge of the Sith, it's like, oh, here's Jar Jar Binks, but then let's get back to the action. And then
Put him out there. Well,
yeah.
hopefully I'll do a spin-off series of Jar Jar Binks.
Oddly enough, they did write in one of the they wrote in the novels like like he basically becomes a child performer. So he's before and then becomes like a traveling circus.
So he goes from the Senate to being a child performer. Wow. Maybe Boris Johnson can do the same. Oop, gonna blank that bit out. That's for sure. Okay. So, we've talked about basically the Mandalorian essentially being the heir to the mantle of the Star Wars fandom. Let's quickly rate some of these Star Wars things. So let's start with, we've got the newest trilogy, which is episodes 7, 8, and 9. We've got Andor. We've got Rogue One. We've got Mandalorian. What have I missed?
Kenobi as well.
Kenobi.
Yeah.
Let's forget about the cartoon ones because, quite frankly, I hate the animation style. Maybe they're good, maybe they're bad. Where would you rate them? What do you think is the worst out of the bunch?
It's a tough one for the worst between episode 8 and 9, but I have to say episode 8 is the worst.
Like The Last Jedi?
Yes.
Is that The Last Jedi, yeah.
Because like seemed like there was no direction at all. It didn't take anything from the previous film that worked well, and then didn't help J.J. Abrams to then develop anything in the ninth film.
The final film,
you kill off Luke Skywalker. You say that Rey's parents were no one, and like
but G Kylo Ren, Palpatine wasn't no one. He was the Senate,
and then you kill off Snoke in like and you're like, no, like we wanted to see a Snoke. Yeah, we wanted to see a Snoke Luke Skywalker showdown, like, and we didn't see that at all.
Okay.
And like also Phasma, who was supposed to be this epic trooper.
I guess their armor's made out of beskar.
Who basically gets killed in the halfway in the second film, and you're like, you could have really used her character even more. It's like they wasted our time for watching it, and then they didn't help towards then developing things for the ninth film.
Well, yeah, I think a thing about Star Wars is they introduce a lot of characters and types of stormtroopers and cute little animals because it's a business, merchandise, royalties.
Yeah.
That's where they're making their money. Because kids would be like, I want a super commando. Oh my god, yeah, they got beskar armor, and they get the latest figurines, and that's always been a big thing about Star Wars. Last Jedi, there's on the planet that Luke's found on, those little furry bird things. They're just in it because they could probably somewhere out there. Lego released something.
Do you know why they were in it?
Why?
It was filmed, I believe, on one of the in Northern Ireland, but the actual things were puffins.
Oh,
and they
cute.
couldn't get rid of them because there were so many of them. So they were like, you know what?
What, they CGI'd over them,
We'll
was it?
CGI over them so they look like something else. But they were like, yeah, the puffins are everywhere. So we can't really just crop them out. Let's just CGI over them. And I think that's what they did.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was just, again, another marketing scheme. But they definitely do that in Star Wars. Like Captain
Especially with the
Phasma.
robots. With the robots as well. Like BB9, I think. You know the
Oh, yeah,
roller,
that ball
yeah, the
thing,
amount of
yeah.
toys they've sold with that is probably ridiculous.
Yeah, because they're kind of cute. Kids like it. Grogu as well.
Mm.
Grogu, I kind of love and hate. In a way, it does add a bit of comic relief, like especially when
He's
he's in that
walking and
droid. Yes,
yes.
yes, no, no, and it's just like there's literally a scene that Mandalorian's walking through a market and he just keeps going yes, yes. And I'm like, that's so childish, but that is what kids do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just find him a bit annoying because he's such an obvious like, he's so cute, and all the fat, or like all the audience members they suck in of that, and all the
Yeah.
kids they buy. It's Star Wars is a business. It's
It
the
is. It is.
merchandise, it's the royalties. Anyway,
Back to it. So episode 8,
yeah,
from worst to best. Episode 8, episode 9.
yeah. Somehow Sidious has returned, or
Then I would
Palpatine
say.
rather.
Then I would say the Han Solo film.
Okay.
Then I would say episode. I'll say episode 7. Then
Yeah. Force Awakens.
then Kenobi.
Oh, that's a bit mean to Kenobi. Come
Yeah,
on.
but I can't put Kenobi ahead of Rogue One. So we go Kenobi.
Okay.
Then it would then go Rogue One, Andor, then Mandalorian.
Really? You think Mandalorian's the best out of them all? Excluding, obviously, the ones we haven't mentioned, like episode 1 to 3, 4, 5, 6. But yeah, with the list we have.
You're right. Yeah,
Really?
Andor.
Interesting.
No, Andor, Mandalorian. Yeah.
So wait, Andor's the best.
So number 1, Andor. Number 2, Mandalorian. Number 3, Rogue One. Number 4, Kenobi. Number 5, episode 7. Number 6, the Han Solo story. Number 7, episode 9, and number 8, episode 8.
I think I agree with you with what's the worst there, but in terms of what's the best, I would actually say, yeah, I would say Andor is the best, but then after that, I would say Rogue One, then Kenobi, then what was the other one? What's the one I'm missing?
Rogue One, Kenobi, Mandalorian as well is out there.
Ah, maybe that's it then. Wow, it's not really much of a change. But it's like agreeing on the same stuff. But yeah, I would say that I've got high hopes for Andor season 2 because that's like the non-camp end of Star Wars where people die. It's really dark. You don't really see the Force in it, and I kind of like that with when they just bring out Luke Skywalker in season 2. It was cool cameo, but it's just like such easy fan service. It's like in Rogue One as well. It's like really cool, dark, gritty. There's no Force in it, but they had to show that scene of Darth Vader at the end.
But I think they had to show it just because. Well, they didn't have. They could have just not shown him fighting and just shown him at the end. But I think they wanted to tie into the fact that that's why he wanted to capture Leia, because she had the plans to the Death Star.
But not the sacred Sith text. Oh, honestly, I just can't get the sacred Jedi text. Oh, well, I think that's all we got time for today because, we love Star Wars. There's so many universes we can explore. And that Star Wars episode we did do a Star Wars special, but there's just too much to talk about. We need to do separate ones and like the original trilogy, the newest trilogy, because boy, there's plenty to trash there. Yeah, so much
and even
more to go
potentially like what can we see in the future. And
through.
I am hopeful because it's like they saw how badly it was received, and hopefully like similar to what they heard from like Marvel as well, is that they are going to work to make things better. But
that's good. They're responding to the audience. Yeah. I'm glad they're actually doing that. And I feel like some of the newest Star Wars stuff it's getting better. Like Book of Boba was garbage. Like
that's
honestly,
one of the ones that we left out.
Yeah,
like on our list.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention it.
Yes, I would say the Book of Boba Fett. I would say after just before episode 9. Because I don't think I could say that the Book of Boba Fett was better than the Han Solo film or better than episode 7.
Yeah. I mean, what's worse than being last? Being second last, I guess.
Or third last.
You could have been better, but
Yes,
you're just disappointing. Like when your parents says, "I'm not angry at you, I'm just disappointed."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly how I felt about the last Star Wars trilogy. Well, we're going to leave it there. But just want to say, if you haven't seen Mandalorian Season 3, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. What would you give it out of 10?
Same, yeah.
Oh, okay, well,
yeah.
worth a watch, I'd say, yeah. Better stuff out there, not gonna lie. But thank you very much, audience members. As you know, we love you. You know, we've noticed that we've been getting more views on our videos. We have been seeing your comments as well. One of them happened to be of my face, which I found a bit alarming. Someone's changed their profile picture, but hey, any publicity is good publicity. But if you want to see more from the Two Maesters, please just click the notification button, give us a like, watch our videos, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out the Pick Up the Mic network with the Sith Lord Jeffrey acting in the shadows as per usual.
The Senate, you mean?
He is the Senate. Jeffrey is the Senate. Or he's Admiral Thrawn because he's hiding.
Yeah.
When will he return, Admiral Thrawn? Who knows? And, you know, if you really do love us and you know how materialist we are, then you can donate to our Patreon page. You can find that below in the comments on YouTube. May the Force be with you, folks.
See you, folks.
Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.